bell strikes, it's the sound of doom in a courtroom, crowded every face in gloom. Truth on trial under high one light, shadows dancing in the dead of night. Fingers pointing secrets to bear, lies entwined in the heavy air. The jury's watching, hearts break in two. Whispers tremble, but the facts won't do. Judge and jury, kings of fate, deciding lives on a silver plate. The verdicts echo, rings all so loud. Innocence buried lost in the crowd. Faint confession behind a cracked door. A stained glove tossed upon the floor. Law books close, though they never heal. Justice bends, but the scars stay real. Clock keeps ticking, truth on the line. Each tick weighs heavy, a paradigm. Chaos bruised behind composure's mask. Judge and jury, kings of fate, deciding lives on a silver plate. The verdicts echo, rings all so loud. Innocence buried, lost in the crowd.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing this morning, afternoon, or night, based on wherever you're tuning in from? If I could talk tonight, or based on wherever you're catching the replay, whenever you're catching the replay. So today is June 26th, 2025, and we move into a critical point in the case of the United States versus Sean P. Diddy Combs. Closing arguments. The government is up first, and I'm going to go ahead and walk you through their summation. I'm going to hold my opinions on how they did until after I finish this, okay? So 9:37 a.m. it begins. Judge Submarinian. Good morning. We emailed the charge to the parties, but there are still some things the government sometimes where the government is capitalized. We will change that on instruction about witnesses. There should be no disruptions during closings. Judge Submarinian continues. Until all I'll tell the jury that I'll tell the jury that it will be a shorter day today, longer day tomorrow, and then during deliberations, it will be up to them. AUSA Slavic will be here at 10 a.m. to deliver the closing arguments. Combs's Alexandra Shapiro. There are some italics we want out, the judge. Okay. So then they break until 10 a.m. 10:02 a.m. The judge. While we wait, Ms. Comey, do you have the laptop ready? AUSA Maureen Comey. I'll defer to Ms. Garagos. Combs's Teeny Garagos. We'll have it ready tomorrow, the judge. With only the admitted exhibits, I'll ask tomorrow. Judge, let's get the jury out. All rise. The jury enters the courtroom. The judge, give your attention to the parties' closing arguments. Today will be a shorter day. For the U.S. closings. Tomorrow, the defense will give their rebuttal, my instructions, and begin deliberations. The jurors who will stay. Now, AUSA Slovak begins her closing arguments. Over the last few weeks, you've learned that Sean Combs is the leader of a criminal organization. He doesn't take no for an answer. He's into smidnapping, arson, forced labor, bribery of security officers, and the brutal crime of sex trafficking. Consider two moments. March 2016 at the Intercontinental Hotel. The defendant got violent with Cassandra Ventura. You saw what happened. He dragged her back to a freak off. 2024 at Jane's house. The defendant choked and hit her. She ran but couldn't get away. AUSA Slavic continues, there are chapters they are chapters in the same book. The defendant counted on silence and shame. He thought that his fame and wealth and power put him above the law. Over the last 7 weeks, you've heard how he used his staff to promote his power. No one could stop him. We'll talk about RICO, including sex trafficking and transportation for prostitution, which are also separately charged as standalone crimes. You may have heard of racketeering. When someone commits a crime as a part of a group, they are more dangerous. A group of people whose purpose was to serve and protect the defendant. It's his kingdom. Everyone was there to serve him, fulfill all of his desires, including his sexual desires. We need to show at least two racketeering crimes. The defendant was head of the Combs enterprise. There was an inner circle, his chief of staff, and his bodyguards. The names changed, but the roles remained the same. You've heard about Christina Coram, KK, Combs's right brain. She lived into Star Island. She communicated with the defendant's girlfriends, his security. You heard their names: D Rock, Roger Bonds, Rube, Uncle Paulie, Fahim. They were armed and ready. Remember the incident at the diner with Suge Knight? David James told you Combs had pum pums. In the search, law enforcement found pum pums, including a rifle with the serial number defaced in Los Angeles, two AR 15s with their serial numbers cut out in the defendant's closet. You also have the rotating cast of assistants paid by the defendant's business. Brendan Paul said he made over $100,000 a year. Christina Coram, KK, made 6 times that amount. When your boss asks you to buy rugs, you're committing a crime. When you smidnap someone or locked his girlfriend in a hotel room after your boss stomped on her face, it's a crime. The law does not require us to know that they liked committing these crimes. You saw KK coddling the defendant to not to not be so reckless, but she got him cash, rugs. She was a member of the enterprise. It impacted interstate commerce. Minimal is fine. Combs knowingly became a member. Wait, Combs knowing, I guess it's KK, I think. Well, he was, oh yeah, Combs knowingly became a member. He was the boss. He was the through line. The racketeering acts? Question mark. Distribution of rugs, smidnapping, arson, bribery, facilitating SMEX trafficking of Cassie and Jane Doe, forced labor, travel for commercial SMEX, cover up. You only need to find that someone would commit 2 acts in any of these categories. It could be 2 acts of rug distribution, one smidnapping, just, uh, wait a minute, one smidnapping and just two. You have far more than two. Let's start with rugs, an essential ingredient of FOs. The most involved were D Rock, Christina Karam, KK, and Fahim, but others helped keep the rug supply high. We are not talking about Mary Jane, but what Brendan Paul called hard rugs. There are stipulations of the rugs found in the searches: cocaine, meth, oxy, ketamine, a dissociative rug, GHB, mushrooms, Molly, 2C. A combination, a combination dyed pink. It's 1305 and 1306. She's referring to the exhibits here. The quantities are not relevant. It's not an element of this crime. Distribution does not require a sale. You know the names of the rug dealers by now. Guido, One Stop, Baby Girl. Jane Doe told you that on two occasions she was told to bring rugs when she flew to meet him. She coordinated with Christina Karam, KK. It's corroborated, it is corroborated rather, by text messages. Christina Karam, KK, told Jane Doe to swing by Mapleton to pick up the Guido package. He was called during hotel nights, so we know that Guido package was more ecstasy. The security team knew what it was. Guido texted Fahim, Puff has a $450 balance with me. Brendan Paul asked for $780 for personal Gucci bag items. That is hard rugs. Rugs were distributed. It doesn't matter that he wasn't buying kilos or selling them. Personal use is just a distraction. They brought and distributed to people around him. Cassandra Ventura used rugs at every FO supplied by the defendant. He introduced Jane Doe to rugs, gave them to her at all but one hotel night. He gave rugs to Carrie Morgan and Bana Bungalon. He made he made Brandon Paul try to see if it was good. D Rock would text One Stop, need to see someone for bro. That is the defendant. Guido asked Fahim to cover the defendant's rug debt. KK, Christina Coram, knew he was distributing rugs to the women 4 wild king nights. Jane Doe told Christina Coram, KK, she was having a bad come down. Christina Coram, KK, gives pro tips on how to deal with it. Plain and simple. This is rug distribution. How about smidnapping? They committed them under both California and New York law. Consider Cassie, Cassandra Ventura. Bond made her stay put. The defendant called Cassandra Ventura, Cassie, a lut. Put an S in front of that lut. He stomped on her face. She was disfigured. Roger Bonds caught her and brought her back. The defendant made her go to the London hotel on Sunset, so no one saw her. She wanted to go home to her mom, but no. It's clear Cassandra Ventura, Cassie, did not consent to staying in the London hotel. David James testified that the defendant demanded to see his search history. If he had posted that the defendant assaulted Cassie in the club, then there's Capricorn Clark, the man administering the lie. The lie detector test told her if she failed, she would end up in the East River. In Central Park, the defendant told her if anything happened, he'd have to unalive her. David James remembers this. He was tested too to get the rat out of the team. In December 2011, Rube helped the defendant smidnap Capricorn Clark. It started on December 22nd, 2011. The defendant banged on Capricorn's door with a pum-pum. He was out for revenge. He barked an order at Capricorn. Get dressed. We're going to unalive Cuddy. They drove to Kid Cudi's home. The defendant had a pum-pum in his lap. This was smidnapping. He moved her and substantially, he moved her and a substantial distance. The defendant said he wouldn't let her go until she brought him Cassandra Ventura, who he kicked when she arrived into the fetal position. Cassie, who was with Kid Cudi that morning, testified to this. The officer who responded to the 911 call, he saw a black Escalade registered to Bad Boy. Then, on January 12th, 2012, the defendant had Kid Cudi's car set on fire. Arson. Someone cut a hole in the roof of Mr. Cudi's car and dropped a Molotov cocktail. We're not suggesting the defendant cut the hole. He didn't even buy his own soup. You heard the voice notes. He said he was going to blow up Kid Cudi's car. What are the odds? He said it, and it happened. The coincidence just keep on coming. The defendant and Rube just happened to be there a few weeks before Kid Cudi was driving the same Porsche the night of the trespass. What are the odds? Kid Cudi, hold on, guys, 1 second. There we go. My bad. I gotta plug up my phone. I don't want my phone to die. Welcome, everyone. I'm going through the prosecution, the government's closing arguments. Kid Cudi had conflicts with no one except the defendant. Then D Rock brought Kid Cudi. Oh, damn, why did I do that? Oh, I just messed up, y'all. Oh my God, I just messed up. I messed up. I messed my space. Hold on. I messed up, guys. Hold on. I'm actually reading a live thread and I hit the wrong button. Lord have mercy. In 2023. I sure did hit the wrong button, y'all. Bear with me. Mm-mm-mm-mm. What the heck did I do just now, y'all? Let's start with, okay, no. I'm at Kid Cudi. For those of you asking during closing, okay, wait. Mm-mm. I don't know how I skipped all the way to the okay, the defendant was having freak out with Cassie. Nope. Okay, here we go. Back to Kid Cudi. Lord have mercy. I jumped so far ahead. I had to like scroll all the way back. Then D Rock brought Kid Cudi to the defendant, who was looking like a Marvel supervillain. Years later, the defendant apologized to Kid Cudi. Then there's bribery. The 2016 video. The defendant was having a FO with Cassie and one of the Smex workers, Jules Flores. Found the defendant sitting in a chair with what he called a devilish stare. In the room, he saw another man. The defendant tried to hand Flores a stack of money. It was his first attempt at bribery that day. As Cassie leaves, Combs starts damage control. Judge, we had a power issue. Is your mic working? Slavic. Hello? Hello? Yes. And then she continues. He called Cassie over a dozen times. The text Call me. Cops are here. He was just manipulating her. But the defendant knew he could be arrested. There was video of the assault. He went and banged on Cassie's door with a hammer. Neighbors were going to call the police. They did, in fact. Carrie Morgan had the LAPD officer's card. KK, Christina Coram, suggests say they had a fun drunk night. She calls and reaches out to Eddie Garcia. Eddie says no. Then KK shows up in person. He won't show her, but says off the record, it's bad. Christina Coram has the defendant call Eddie on his personal phone. Eddie says his boss will do it for $50,000. The defendant calls him Eddie, my angel. That's how he's saved in the cell phone. Eddie goes to deliver the USB. D-Rock and Christina Coram are there. The defendant counted out dollar by dollar the bribe. Eddie told you, the security guard told him, he came up with the defendant. That was D-Rock. Eddie asked the defendant, what if Cassie calls the police? So the defendant knew. Eddie finds the ID of stand in for Flores. Wait a minute. Hold on. So the defendant knew. I guess what she's saying is he had the mens rea to know that this was illegal and Cassie could call the police. Eddie finds the ID of stand in for Flores. NDAs are signed. Don't speak to anyone. For those who are asking during this closing, Sean Combs has his chair pushed way back from the defense table and is looking around. Slavic continues. Paying for silence is influencing testimony. In their opening, the defense suggested it was just about bad publicity. Police involved would hurt him. The two are connected. The next racketeering predicate is sex trafficking. The defendant's inner circle assisted, whether they wanted to or not. Threats, rugs, lies, and illegal violence to make them have sex with escorts. This is not an attempt to criminalize dysfunctional relationships or personal sexual behavior. They did not want to have sex with strangers while the defendant masturbated. They were covered in oil and sore over and over and over again. We're not asking you to find that every hotel night or every FO was sex trafficking or even the majority. You only need to find the elements were met at least one time. One FO. That's it. He's guilty. But it was way more than once. Let's start with Jane Doe. Turn off the public screen. Combs is still Combs still in his chair, pushed back from the defense table, at which Xavier Donaldson and Alexandria Shapiro have their chins in their hands. AUSA Slavic. Consider the sobriety party and in Jane's house. Let's start with the love bombing stage. Jane was head over heels. They traveled to the Caribbean. Dr. Hughes talked about this. She never met with any witness, but it was like she knew them. Love bombing is a tactic. He was grooming her. He gave Jane ecstasy. She fell to the ground, convulsing. The defendant liked baby oil and red lights. Then he introduced in May 2021. She wanted to please her partner. She was high. The defendant had a FO set up that very night. A SMEX worker came. Jane Doe was excited by that first experience. She didn't realize she had opened Pandora's box. It became 90% of their relationship. For a while, she went along. Then she told him she wanted to stop it. There were there are text messages about this. Now, as she's talking, those are being shown on the screen. However, the public cannot see it. Okay, guys? Jane wrote, I wanted to do things outside of these rooms to travel with you. The defendant ignored Jane's discomfort. Those hotel nights were not about what Jane wanted. They were about what the defendant wanted to see. He decided how long. Jane said if she was going to have smacks with strange men, she should choose which ones. The defendant made her ask them for nude photos. These were not for her. When she asked to use protection, the defendant was not happy. He was dismissive and condescending. She would try to have it go faster. He'd order her to slow it down. It was about what he wanted. He dangled carrots. He gave her gifts and money. He lied to her repeatedly. She asked, when are we going to get away? He said they'd go on a yacht, but they didn't. Here's what Jane Doe wrote in her notes app. I don't want to have you use me to fulfill your freaky, wild desires in hotel rooms. He used his payment of her rent as leverage. The carrot turned into a stick. She wrote, the threats and innuendos are nonstop. He paid her he paid for her veneers because he didn't like her teeth. Then said, "Look at the roof over your head and your pretty mouth and teeth." He wanted an all star party, Smex with three men. She sent him a photo of her menstrual blood. He sent this voice note, Sean Combs's voice. "I'm about to really disappear on you. I don't have no time for this, baby girl. You got me on my job. You got to get on your job." The message couldn't be clearer. Not going to take no for an answer. For those asking, AUSA Slavic is looking down and reading her closing statement from a binder on the lectum. AUSA continues. After reading Cassie's lawsuit, Jane Doe writes to the defendant, "I feel like I'm reading my own sexual trauma. Two of my birthdays, you forced me." Jane Doe wrote, "You gaslit me. It was sexual exploitation. You framed as love for your sick fetishes." The defendant called her and tried to trick her into saying it was all consented to. He fed her a false narrative. Listen to this clip as he talks over her. "Dr. Hughes told you how a victim of trauma is bonded to their abuser. Jane often felt the defendant didn't listen to the truth. She said Sean would just move on. He would just say to move on. He told her to charge him. That answer that lawyers would be involved to buy her silence. So she asked for $100,000 a year for her to move on. She thought it was reasonable, far less than Cassie. The defendant went ballistic. She refused to she refused to adopt his false narrative. You can read the text messages yourself. Again, the public cannot see the text message. Jane Doe wrote that the defendant was going to show her Smex tapes to the father of her child. Then he reached out and told her to come see him in Miami. She makes it clear that to him that she does not want a hotel night. He says okay. Despite his promise, he called a Smex worker. Here are more threats about the rent. Jane Doe writes, "I hate worrying about the rent." This is in 2024. It all culminated in June 2024. He assaulted her and forced her to perform oral smex on a smex worker. This is smex trafficking. It was interstate, and the astroglide crossed state lines. Are you serious? Did she say that? Yeah. Oh my God, the government is being petty. She's being petty, y'all. She is being petty. Oh, I love AUSA Slavic. And it literally says it was interstate and the astroglide crossed the state lines. The defendant knew or recklessly disregarded that force, threats of force, coercion, or fraud were used. Consenting once doesn't mean she consented every time. One time is enough. In 2023, he made Jane Doe feel she'd have a proper New York City weekend, but he invited Smex workers. Jane sent him another message. It's dark and sleazy. In fear of losing my home. His response, girl, stop. Then he FaceTimed her and told her about shopping and dinner. He lied. Then public screen is still off, but they have something up there for the jury, the judge, as well as the defense table. He also was texting Paul Arthur, another SMEX worker. Look at these messages. He is setting up a hotel night when she is in the air. He tells her he has a surprise for her. She did not want it. That before the plane lands, it is completed. Act of SMEX trafficking. He tricked her. Then, under coercion, she calls Cabral to come to New York City. In the next text, she says, in New York City, I knew you would pair me up with a random person. In the sobriety party, without rugs, she is also disgusted. She vomits. She writes, I'm not a corn star. I'm not an animal. I need a break. The defendant responds, let's spend the day, no strangers. She replies, you'll love bomb me. He switches from carrot to stick. The house. He texts, are you going to let me into our house? 8 times. Then he said he was sick and needed her. She went and had SMEX with 3 different men without rugs. After vomiting, he said, get back out there. 2024 in Jane Doe's home. 3 months after Homeland Security agents searched the defendant's home, they used Jane Doe's home. He came there. They were supposed to have a fun date night. They drank and argued. She pushed his head into the counter. He shouted at her. She told him to leave. She ran and closed the door. He kicks the door down. I'm sorry, he kicks down 3 doors. My bad. 3 doors. You saw you saw doors. Here's one of them on the screen. Without shoes. I'm sorry, she ran without shoes. She hid. He was waiting. Jane hit the defendant. He punched her in her face. Here are the photos. He dragged her by her hair back into the house. Jane Doe took his phone and called the other woman. She shouted. The defendant called Jonathan Perez. He followed her into the shower and hit her, knocked her down. He called Anton, a Smex worker, and told her to have Smex with him. She put on makeup to hide her injuries. She drove to pick Anton up at the gate. Then the defendant said, "Take this plucking pill." He put his face inches from hers and asked, "Is this coercion?" He was brazenly acknowledging that he was breaking the very same law he violated before. Jane Doe didn't want to have Smex with the Smex worker that night. She said no, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. Jane Doe performed oral Smex until Anton finished. The defendant told his security to bring cash to Anton. They didn't have it. The next day, he gave Jane Doe the money to pay Anton. She Ubered a bag of money over to him. This was coercion. The judge says, "Miss Slavic, at the appropriate time, let's break for lunch." Slavic, "This would be a fine time." The judge, "Okay, jurors, you may eat. You may go eat." Now, her closing argument was almost 5 hours long, y'all. So we're getting into it, and she's cooking. She's cooking, y'all. Let her cook. At 1:25 p.m., they're back. Judge, "Miss Slavic, are you ready?" AUSA, just just the flag for the court. We are going to need to change PowerPoints. Clerk, can you turn the public screens on? All rise. The jurors enter. Miss Slavic, you may proceed. Let's go back to three nights where part of a buildup from fraud to coercion to finally force. Loud beeping. AUSA, I apologize. Judge, do you need to change batteries? Courtroom deputy, Miss Slavic, do you need AA batteries? Combs is still sitting with his chair pushed back, now legs crossed, hands crossed. Miss Slavic, the house was just an example of the defendant's financial coercion of Jane Doe. Also, rugs. They became a necessary part of SMEX. Jane Doe told you about Miami in 2024. He gave her liquid Molly. they showed you a video. They'll argue that she was super into it, but she was super high. His coercion included threats to release tapes of her having sex in hotel rooms. Combs threatened to send sex tapes to Jane Doe's child's father. This was to coerce her into more commercial sex acts. The defense has suggested that Jane Doe agreed to these hotel nights. Let's talk about what agreeing means. That's an incomplete picture. Let's turn to volume 2. We're going to talk about Cassie with several examples. You know, from sitting through this trial, that force was not limited to these days, though the decade they were together, he forced her to have sex with sex workers. Cassie was 19. He was in his late 30s. He signed her to a 10 record deal. He took her on a yacht and gave her ecstasy. They had sex. They were in a relationship. She had just turned 21. The defendant was her boss, who called all the shots. He molded her. He told her, Capricorn, he told her, I'm sorry, he molded her. He told her, Capricorn, let me show you. Then ordered Cassie around. And she did it. Walk and turn around. Total compliance. He didn't take no for an answer. He was abusive physically, emotionally, psychologically, sexually. They went to call this, they want to call this DV, but he was forcing her to have FOs. He controlled everything. He demanded that her nails be done a certain way on red carpets. The Vanity Fair party in 2014, Deontay Nash told you. He shouted. Combs shouted, I thought I told y'all she had to have her hair up. He wouldn't let her make money from her music. She was offered the chance to do a common video. Puff said no. He said he paid for her car, clothing, phones, vacation. He made her dependent. He did it to her family too. After he found out she was with Kid Cudi, he demanded $20,000 from her parent to pay him back, or he'd release Smex tapes. That month, in just this account, he had made $3.2 million coming in and out. This was about control. Remember what Dr. Hayes said? When a victim is on unsure footing, the abuser has control. He punched her, kicked her, dragged her. When it was bad, he hid her in hotels. to heal and not be seen. You saw photos and video. D Rock, Rube, Paulie, they all knew. He attacked, he attached her, wait a minute, he attacked her for attending a Prince party until Prince's security intervened. Mia and Maya Morales described abuse to you. Cassie told you when she got to the house, he threatened to release Smex tapes. He assaulted her in Jamaica. He beat her up in Las Vegas while she was curled up under the toilet. She said D Rock cried. There was his assault at the Intercontinental Hotel caught on tape. For Cassie, it was her normal. She was there when he attacked Mia, Deontay Nash, and Bonna. Bonna may have gotten the date wrong, but she had injuries. One time, he told, he has, as Cassie told, had Cassie hold Pum Pums for him. The diner and Suge Knight incident, Cassie was in the house. She saw. Why didn't she leave? Hitting leads to fear. Even when Cassie was in South Africa, she couldn't get away. KK, Christina Coram, kept calling. D Rock was loyal only to the defendant. He played both sides. He talked to Cassie, then reported it back to the defendant. She about to ice up. I told her to chill out in a text message. They met for dinner in Malibu. Then he raped her on the living room floor. She said no. She cried. But he didn't take no for an answer. He raped her. He wrote, I could tell I didn't turn you on yesterday. That is, he raped her. Because of the trauma bond after the rape, she met him at a friend's party. Then they had smacks, consensual smacks. This was a trauma bond. He had an MO, an hours long performance. He masturbated and sometimes filmed, just like with Jane Doe. Sometimes the defendant told the Smex workers to urinate on her. Sometimes he urinated on her himself. Why? To turn himself on. She began rug she became rug addicted. Here she wrote, I love our FOs when we both want it. Jurors, this is not all this is not an all or nothing situation. There were times he knew she didn't want to do it. That is Smex trafficking. She obviously didn't want to have a Smex worker urinate in her mouth while she laid on the floor. Let's talk about the videos you've seen. You've seen the clips. You don't see pum pums. You see her having Smex, masturbating. The defendant is moving the camera around at times, focusing on the Smex worker, not Cassie at all. It's clear this was about his fantasy, not Cassie's. March 5th, 2016, in the Intercontinental Hotel, the video. Before the Intercontinental Hotel, Cassie had a premiere. It was a big night for her. She agreed to a FO as damage control. Look at this. She says, I don't want you thinking I don't want it. I don't want to. She knows the defendant won't take no for an answer. The defendant gets Jules to come. You know what happens? An argument. The defendant hits Cassie in the face. All she can think about is her premiere. She takes off without her shoes. She's referring to the video that we all saw on CNN, guys. He throws her to the ground. He kicks her, then drags her back to the room where Jules is waiting. Why is the dragging relevant? Because Jules is there. FOs have multiple sessions. They were between sessions. He leaves her, but he takes her bags. But she doesn't follow him. Instead, Cassie is using the phone in the elevator lobby. The defendant is making another conscious decision to take the bags into the room, then come back for Cassie with his hands free. He grabs her phone, then makes the decision to stay. He stays even though he is in a towel and looks ridiculous. After Flores arrives, he stalls in the hall. He knows Giles is still in the room, possibly naked. The defendant claims he took back he took bad rugs that day. But you can see he is in control. Cassie just wanted to get her bag and phone and leave. The defendant offered Flores money. This is a photo of Jane Doe in the car back to her house with sunglasses over her black eye. He was using force to get Cassie to continue. Oh, I think they meant Cassie because there is still on Cassie, but that's a typo. So it would be a photo of Cassie in a car going back to her house. He was using force to get Cassie to continue with the FO. The defense may tell you the violence was not connected to the smacks, but it was an attempt to get Cassie to continue with the FO. Later, she wrote to him, "I'm not a rag doll. I'm someone's child." There were FOs in New York City with Daniel Phillip. Daniel Phillip was not paid for his time. This is a ridiculous argument. In one FO, between sessions, the defendant told Cassie to come in the bedroom. She kept using the computer. The defendant threw a bottle, dragged her, then stomped her. Daniel Phillips heard Combs yelling, "Itch, when I tell you to come here, you come here." After that, Daniel Phillip could not perform. But a completed act is not required for SMEX trafficking. This is SMEX trafficking. They were at Cannes. They were at the film festival. The defendant accused Cassie of stealing his rugs. He threw her off the boat they were staying on. Mia heard an audio of this, recognized the voices. They flew back to New York City. She traded seats to get away, but he followed her and showed her FO videos. He threatened to release the Smex tapes when they got to New York City. They had a FO. This is another example of clear cut coercion. He knew her, he threw her off the boat without her passport. He wanted Cassie to be afraid to say no to him. Cassie said, "I don't know what no would mean, what no would turn into." He could be violent. The defense said Cassie made a choice every day to stay with him. Step back. Imagine yourself as Cassie. This was the force. This was the leverage. There were the rugs, dissociative and numbing. She needed that buffer. Yes, some of the messages are explicit. That doesn't mean that she wanted to have SMEX with SMEX workers at FOs in 2009. He wrote, "You're supposed to be seducing me all day." Cassie told the defendant she didn't want to do FOs. Take her, take for instance her birthday party. Deontay told you about. He demanded she have a FO, and she did. What choice did Cassie have in the end? She did not have the freedom to make voluntary adult choices. Let's go back to count one for a minute. While it was the defendant in the FO, but he had help from KK, D Rock, and Fahim. They knew it was wrong. How did they facilitate it? KK got strange men across. Um, I'm sorry. KK got strange men access to rooms the defendant and Cassie shared. KK got Clayton Howard, Dave, access to the room. Jonathan Perez found the video of Cassie having Smex with a Smex worker. He showed it to KK. She knew. Fahim saw it too. Fahim got rugs to the defendant even during AFO between sessions. On February 18, 2024, after Jane Doe told Christina Coram, KK still sent stuff for Wild King nights. D Rock iced Cassie's black eyes. It would be absurd to think that D Rock didn't know what they were doing. Of course he knew. I expect the defense will say they didn't know. David James saw a stranger. Deontay Nash saw one. Jonathan Perez saw video of Jane having smacks with another man while the defendant watched. Interstate travel for prostitution. The defendant paid Smex workers. He caused the travel. He sometimes booked it. The transportation counts do not require force, fraud, or coercion. Even if all consented, we know that's not true. It's still a crime. It's just knowing transportation with the intent for that individual to engage in prostitution. This was Jules Theodore at the London Hotel in New York City. The defendant asked Jules, or is this Giles? I think it's Giles, name for the ticket. The defendant's American Express showed he paid for a car. There's a $2,000 bill from the London Hotel. The defendant texts, I will tip you. For what? Smacks. For this incident alone, the defendant is guilty under count 3. But there's more. More Giles at the London Hotel, starting at 7 a.m. Consider this. Paul going to Turks. The defendant says, how should I pay? He paid Paul's travel to Turks for smacks. Here, Reggie flew from Las Vegas to LA for smacks. He is never tired. Jane Doe sent $1,100 via Cash App. Here is the hotel folio for $4,000 of damage. The hotel staff found bodily fluids on the floor. It couldn't be cleaned. It couldn't be clearer. Every time KK helped arrange travel for the Wild King Nights, she was part of the crime. She may not have liked it, but she did it. KK set up travel for a Wild King Night in Vegas. Diddy, a voice note from Diddy. The wildest Wild King Night in Vegas AUSA, KK knows. KK helped Cabral book his travel. Combs asked her for cash. She knows exactly what is going what is going on. She facilitated travel for the SMEX workers. Each is a racketeering act. You only need to find two acts. Just here, there are dozens. Afternoon break? Yo, the government let her cook. Just let her cook. She is cooking. And she's like, okay, afternoon break. Then the judge says, okay, and they take a break and they come back at 3:31 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. When Judge Subramanian asked AUSA how much more time she has, she said 1 hour. The jury entering. All rise. AUSA Slavic continuing. I expect the judge will instruct you on forced labor. Then she shows a chart. You heard of forced labor of four women: Cassandra Ventura, Jane Doe, Mia, and Capricorn Clark. Cassandra Ventura and Jane Doe, it was grueling sexual services. Cassie called them grueling, up to 4 days, maybe even more. Jane Doe said the same thing. Cassandra Ventura and Jane Doe were on call to perform FOs for the defendant whenever he wanted, wherever he wanted. He used force, threats of force. He used force or threats of force. He would say, let's finish on a high note. Let's push through. You're not tired. You're not getting tired, are you? It took weeks to recover from those FOs. That's forced labor. KK kept setting up hotel rooms and flights. Let's turn to Mia. She worked for Combs, finally at Revolt. She went 5 days without sleep. Combs sexually assaulted her. He put his hand up her dress. He came into her bedroom and penetrated her. He came into the closet and forced her to perform oral sex on him. There was one time in the bathroom of a private jet. She can't fully remember re- all of the repeated traumatic experiences. She was clear as a bell, even under cross examination. She performed labor and services, including sexual services. He threw her against a wall and slammed a door on her arm. She saw violence at Prince's party and in Turks. When they were in when they were in South Africa, KK told Mia, if you don't call him in 10 minutes, you don't have a job. He has all the power and control. She knew she couldn't say no, even to little things. Mia knew that her job was to protect the defendant. HR was for Combs. She couldn't go to the police due to Combs's power. The threats left her with no options. I expect you're going to hear that she could have left, that she told Combs she loved him. Mia pulled no punches. They were high highs and low lows. Capricorn Clark had an issue with overtime. She took the issue to the head of HR, Vaisha Wilson. But HR was the defendant's puppet. The defendant and Uncle Paulie threatened her in Central Park. And the lie detector guy, and she was taken to Kid Cudi's home. Capricorn Clark had a son to provide for. Combs threatened to blacklist her. Now, witness tampering and obstruction. After Cassie filed her lawsuit, the way this weaves the whole story together. Jane Doe wrote, "You you gaslit me." She posed a problem for the defendant. So Combs called Jane. The calls were recorded on KK's phone. You can listen to them. On November 19th, my birthday, by the way, on November 19th, 2023, Cassie's lawsuit was already settled. But he is afraid of a criminal investigation. He calls and asks, "What can I do to make you feel better?" He says, "I can't be speaking on the phone." He is worried the United States government will get 3 years of his text messages with Jane Doe while he's recording the call. He tries to convince her she was willing. He says, "We just did some kinky sugar honey iced tea I thought we both enjoyed." Do you hear on the recorded call the sound of notes being taken with a Sharpie to plan how to get what they want Jane Doe to say? You've seen that in this trial, the lawyer the lawyers passing notes to each other. Do you hear on the recorded call the sound of notes take being taken with a Sharpie to plan how? What the fuck? This is the same thing. That's the same. Sorry, guys. Then Combs had D Rock reach out to Mia, asking her to say something. Mia told you her reaction to the call. She had seen the defendant bash in Cassie's head. D Rock had seen it too. He was asking her to agree with a lie. As the federal investigation grew, they kept reaching out to Mia. D Rock calls her 5 times in a row. The chart Ms. Sanker presented to you brings this together. The defendant's conduct towards Mia is also obstruction and witness tampering. Also, obstruction, the video of the Intercontinental Hotel, the bribery, but also obstruction. Finally, venue. We only have to show that an act in we only have to show an act in this district. It doesn't have to be criminal. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. It does have to be criminal. The Southern District includes Manhattan, the Bronx, and the Bronx. Count 2, FOs in Manhattan. Count 3, FOs, Giles in the London, I'm sorry, in the London Hotel in Manhattan. Count 4, Giles in Manhattan. He loved Manhattan, huh? You spent 7 weeks listening to a lot of evidence, which was hard to hear or see. You heard from Kid Cudi, whose house was broken into and whose car was burnt. You heard from Regina Ventura, Deontay Nash, how he ran the enterprise with total control. It's time to hold him accountable. It's time to find him guilty. The judge says, "We'll continue tomorrow. Jurors, do not watch or read anything about this case. All rise." And then they adjourn for the day. Let me tell you something. Oh my goodness. There were a lot of like typos in what he was saying though. In what this is from Inner City Press. There were a lot of typos, like a lot. It was hard to kind of read. But again, to be fair, to be completely fair, there are a lot of autocorrect. There could have been a lot of autocorrect going on because he had a lot to type today, specifically with closing arguments. He had a whole lot to type. So it had to be, you know, a little bit, well, a lot of it, I would say, harder than normal. So I understand the typos. You know what I'm saying? I can forgive the typos because there was a lot of information. Now, Agent Slavik, her closing brought everything together. It was crazy. It was crazy. Like some of the things that she brought into her closing statements, her summation and closing, some of the information that she brought in, I had actually forgot. So that was a great refresher for not just the jury, but for the public. It was also really, really good because she explained, she coordinated the law to each count. She kind of tied, hey, Martin Jackson, she coordinated and showed, Hey John W. Hey BB London. Hey Lisa says what? How y'all doing? Hey Bush Babies, I see you. Y'all be sure to tap in. She kind of brought together the acts and each count, which I think was critical also for a lot of people. Hey Crystal Mods. Okay, no problem. I think you came in on the did you come in? Did you just come in? I know they are on him. They are on him like white on rice. I cannot. I mean, that was good. That was a good closing argument. Um, it's kind of like it's so hard to really tell like her um like I don't know if she was monotone straight across reading this, but I think she was giving inflection in her voice. I could tell by the things that she was saying. I could tell by the things that she was saying, but and I could tell by what the vloggers who are actually there, like Nika Knight is actually there. She has been there. She left for a little bit, but she came back. Tisa Tells, she's another one who is there religiously every day. Shouts out to her. Who else is there every day? There's quite a few content creators who are there every single day, and they were there today for the prosecution's closing arguments, and they said that the government pretty much just slammed the gauntlet down. And I mean, she did. She brought up a lot of elements of the case. She tied in every single element. I think the defense, they're probably still up right now working on Mark Agnefilo's closing argument. I think they're still up to this moment right now. I mean, the government pointed out the text messages in which Jane said she didn't want to do it anymore. Cassie said she didn't want to do it anymore. She brought up the instance at the Intercontinental Hotel where there was actually an FO happening with Jules in the room. Mm. She even brought in the fact of the grooming. I know a lot of people are saying, "Oh, she wasn't groomed. She wasn't groomed. She wanted to be with him." Let me tell you something. 19 years old and this man is in his late 30s. She was being groomed. I don't care what anybody say. Let's argue. If you feel that Cassie at her age was in an appropriate, even playing field relationship, please let me know in the comments. That I will go back and forth with someone on. Let me know. Because point blank period, that was he was grooming her. He groomed her to be his smex toy for his own sexual desires. But guys, I want to let y'all know I will be covering the defense's closing statements as they occur tomorrow. Like as we get the updates during the day, I am going to be following along and updating during the day. Um, because I'm just eager. I don't want to wait until the night. I don't want to wait until, like our regular time. I want to be in that moment and listen and hear what they have to bring to the table to combat what the government has already said. So now, nearly after her nearly 5 hour summation, right? AUSA Christy Slavic delivered a nearly 5 hour closing arguments, asking the jurors to view Combs as the leader of the criminal enterprise who doesn't take no for an answer. The power, violence, and fair. The government she was sure to actually point out. She alleged that he used power, violence, and fear to coerce his ex girlfriends, Cassie Ventura and Jane Doe, into non consensual sexual acts with sex workers. As far as the FOs and sex trafficking, she was certain to highlight the pattern of Combs orchestrating numerous FOs or hotel nights involving paid male sex workers and framed as undeniable evidence. She framed it as undeniable evidence of sex trafficking and racketeering, which was good. Now, on the RICO, the criminal enterprise breakdown, the prosecutor mapped out Diddy's organization, describing lieutenants, the security, and foot soldiers, the assistants, who were all complicit in criminal acts. Anything from forced labor to transportation for prostitution to rug distribution and bribery. The evidence of coercion and psychological control. What the prosecution did was they cited forensic psychologist Dawn Hughes's testimony on trauma bonding and love bombing to explain why the victims stayed and acquiesced. They got this big word in here, child. Look. She also referenced that he recorded calls with Jane Doe after Cassie's lawsuit, trying to make attempts to gaslight her and also silence her. Sexual assault on the plane and threats. She pointed out Mia's incident that allegedly happened on that plane. And also, she pointed out the intercontinental video that pretty much everybody has seen. I'm sure some of the members of the jury have seen. And as far as legal clarity, one of the big things that I think that Slavic did in driving this home is that they're not asking the jury to figure out if every single time that these people got together, that they saw these people on red carpets, that, you know, they were in public or in private together, that every single time they were having an FO or Cassie was being forced to be in that, in his space or in that position at that time. They're not asking the jury to do that. They're not. They're asking them to pay close attention and identify just one time that this happened, and they will need to find him guilty. It doesn't have to be multiple times, just one time. And not only did she point that out, she also gave them different accounts of when the sex trafficking occurred, when the force, fraud, and coercion occurred, when it was force, threats, and force used to coerce these women into fulfilling his sexual desires. hmm I think her summation was really, really good. I think she did an amazing job. Now, her closing plea, she was sure to point out all of the text messages the videos that will be available in the jury room to them, all of the bank records that were seized. She let the jury know it's time to hold him accountable. It's time for justice. It's time to find the defendant guilty. Now, I'm going to say today because it's already what time? It's already 1:12 a.m. here, Eastern Standard Time. So today, like I said, I will be following the defense's closing and rebuttal to what the government has said today. Well, yesterday at this point, in real time. So I will be live. I think I'm going to wait until about maybe 11:12. Yeah, 11:12 Eastern Standard Time, just so that the people who are like updating and jotting down what's being said, just so there's like a flow of information. I don't really want to start at 9 because then we'll have to sit here and try to fill in the time with like conversation and I don't know. I mean, I could do that, but I would prefer for us to actually have a good amount of content so that we could work through and catch up to where everybody's at some point. Yeah, I think I'll start at about 11 or 12. Listen, guys, if you're within the sound of my voice and you are not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing today. Be sure to set your notifications to all so that you're notified when I go live or add new content. And that notification will help you, especially tomorrow, so that you know when I'm going live. So, what's next? As I stated, the defense will be delivering their closing arguments today, June 27, 2025. And then the prosecution will have an opportunity to give a rebuttal. Then Judge Arun Subramanian will give jury instructions and deliberations will begin. I feel strongly that the deliberations will more than likely begin tomorrow after the court is adjourned. When deliberations begin, the jury cannot leave. They're not able to leave. They have to stay together until they make a decision. So this is where like they will sequester them. They'll more than likely be housed somewhere close to a courthouse, probably on a floor in a hotel with, handlers, jury handlers kind of monitoring them to make sure they're not talking to anyone. I'm sure the Southern District has like some type of place set up where they have the jury stay to deliberate. But I would imagine that the deliberations will begin Friday night, and they'll have the weekend to deliberate. They'll basically be charged with doing deliberations until they come up with a verdict. So we'll see what happens. We shall see. I can't wait to hear what the defense has to add. It looks like a lot of you guys in the comments feel like that he's done. I feel like he's in serious trouble, especially based on the fact that his team did not mount a defense. I don't know. That kind of creeps me out that they didn't mount any type of a defense, but we'll see what happens. I think it's a huge gamble that they're making, not mounting any type of defense, not calling one single witness to testify on his behalf, but stranger things have happened. So we'll just have to wait and see, folks. But I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you all. Bush babies, be sure to hit that like button. Let's be sure to feed Mr. First name Alga, last name Rhythm. I will catch you guys on the next one.
Shadows dancing in the dead of night. Fingers pointing secrets to bear. Lies entwined in the heavy air. The jury's watching, hearts break into whispers tremble, but the facts won't do. Judge and jury, confession behind a cracked door. A stained glove tossed upon the floor. All books closed, though they never yield. Justice